Hi, this is Neil with treadmilldoctor.com. Today we're going to take you through a Cybex 770T treadmill assembly. The tools required are going to be a Phillips screwdriver, a 3/4 inch wrench, a 14mm wrench, and a 7/32 Allen wrench, which is included in your hardware pack. The only time you're going to need a 3/8 drive socket extension is if you want to route the power cable down the length of the treadmill to come out the back. Here you're going to see Josh use this Phillips driver to remove the shield that covers the cube. This is where you're going to run your communication cable from the console. This is also where you would remove the side rail if you wanted to run the power cord down the back, but we didn't have to do that for this install, so we'll probably show you that at a later date. Here's a good look at that spot. It's a little offset, so it's hard to route it through there sometimes. Next, you're going to get your 14mm hex head bolts, and you're going to start them, but don't put them in all the way, because you're going to have to set the side rail down on top of that, and these are going to kind of hold it in place for you. You're going to want to put the 2 bolts in on both sides. Whenever you go to put the side rails on, you'll notice that there's no string or anything running down that side rail. I guess the idea is that you don't need it. Some manufacturers will give you a string. So we had the idea to take a small piece of wire and run it through there to make it a little bit easier. You're going to see later on that we actually got rid of that because it was easier just to lift up on the side rail and kind of run it through there just using your hands and kind of feeling it around. Alright, right here Josh is just putting in 1 bolt on each side, and there's also a little slotted space at the top of the side rail where this is going to sit in, and it's kind of going to hold it in place for you. Now we're going to put the console on. Here you might want to get some help from somebody. The console is heavy. If you absolutely have to, you could probably do it by yourself, but I wouldn't suggest it. You're going to want to kind of hold it into place and set it down, but not all the way, so that you have just a little bit of room so that you can route that cable down there. And there's absolutely nothing in the way to hold it out, so once you drop it all the way down, you're going to see it'll kind of fall right through to the bottom. We left those bolts loose at the bottom so that you could get a little bit of motion and there wasn't anything holding you from putting that 1 bolt in the slot at the top. It'll be kind of tough to get it set, but once you get it set right, it stays pretty stable. You'll see me pull up right here, and what I'm doing is I'm setting the side rail on the top of that bolt. That way I have just a little bit of room to route it through there. The holes are a little offset right here, so it makes it hard for you to pull those 3 cables through. So I struggled a little bit. I sped up the video so you didn't have to sit there and watch me struggle with it, but it might take you a couple minutes to get through there, but they do come through there. Now once you get all 3 cables through there, you're going to plug your communication cable, which is the RJ connector that looks like a phone jack. You're going to plug that one into the cube, and then you're going to see a power cable. That power cable comes underneath the lift motor, and there's a clip that holds it down. Always make sure you clip all your wires down, and you're going to plug that in. It's kind of a weird connector. You got to make sure it's in there correctly. Those things do come loose and they will cause problems later. It'll make people think that their console's out or they have a bad screen. Here you're going to see us put the coax cable through. There's a little plug that you have to push out from the inside, and then you want to put the little nut around it to hold it in place. Now I'm going to give you a little bit better look at the communication cable. Now we're going to find our button head bolts, and we're going to put those in the uprights. I probably should have mentioned earlier that in the console, we had already put the bolts in after we got that wire ran. You want to leave them kind of loose, but go ahead and run your bolts in so your console doesn't fall off of the uprights. Here you'll see that I tried to start them by hand. It gave me a little bit of trouble, so you kind of got to move that upright around. And then Josh handed me a extension with an Allen head on it. You don't ever want to use power tools to start these things off because they do cross thread very easily. You can see that once I got it started, I was able to put the whole thing in by hand. You also want to make sure that you put your Loctite on each one of these bolts. We forgot to show that, but we did put Loctite on every one of these bolts. It comes in your hardware pack, and that'll keep the bolts from backing out whenever it's shaking around with people running on it and it's elevated. You want to do the same thing on both sides. You're going to have 4 more button head screws left. Those are going to go in the standoffs at the bottom on each side. If you have trouble getting these in, you probably just need to back out those top button head screws and move it around a little bit. I sped this up a little bit because it was a process with that open face wrench. You could probably get a ratchet in there and make this process a little bit faster. It's a 14mm. And here we took the plugs for the hood and we put them in the bottom piece, and in a minute you're going to see us struggle with that a little bit. So what we did was we actually took them out and put them in the top of the hood and put it back down, and that was much easier. Okay, now we're going to start wrapping things up a little bit. You can see that we're going to finish up tightening everything. Josh is making sure there's Loctite, and he's making sure all those last bolts are tight. I'm going to put this cover back on the hood. That's going to keep dust out of that fan at the bottom of the cube, so don't forget that. We're going to go get that hood, and this is where we kind of had a little bit of trouble, and it's only because we didn't put the plugs in the top of the hood, thinking that it all goes in the same place. We thought it would be the same, but they kind of pressure fit in these little rubber grommets that are in the frame, and this helps the plug go down into the hole, gives it some room to move. Now we're going to attach the power cord. If you were routing your power cord through the rear of the machine, then you would have already done this. This is something else that you don't want to use power tools for. You'll see that we sit down with the hand driver and you hold the bracket up to the side, and then you're going to screw in the bracket, and that's going to hold the power cord into place even whenever the machine's being elevated by the user. Alright, now we're just going to plug it in and wrap up the power cord, and that concludes the 770T Cybex treadmill assembly. If you like this video or you found it informative, maybe you want to see some more, please like and subscribe. You can also find a lot more info at treadmilldoctor.com, and you can also email us at doc@treadmilldoctor.com, and we'll be happy to help you out with anything you need. Once your treadmill starts up, you're going to have a handlebar screen. This is a touch screen. It should be lit up and be responsive. And if you don't have your coax cable hooked up, then this is